Hey, fifth grade. For today's poetry lesson, we're going to be reading a very, very sad poem. I'm going to go ahead and have you click on your poem. You'll find that in the Your Work section of the assignment. All right. So, some of the saddest poems I know are about the deaths of our cats and dogs. Humans feel so helpless to offer comfort or relief when animals suffer. In this haunting poem, John Updike tells the story of a puppy that couldn't tell her people that something was wrong. Follow along with me as I read. Dog's death. She must have been kicked unseen or brushed by a car. Too young to know much, she was beginning to learn to use the newspaper spread on the kitchen floor, and to win, wetting there, the words, "Good dog, good dog." We thought her shy malaise was a shot reaction. The autopsy disclosed a rupture in her liver. As we teased her with play, blood was filling her skin, and her heart was learning to lie down forever. Monday morning, as the children were noisily fed and sent to school, she crawled beneath the youngest bed. We found her twisted and limp, but still alive. In the car to the vet's, on my lap, she tried to bite my hand and died. I stroked her warm fur, and my wife called in a voice imperious with tears. Though surrounded by love that would have upheld her, nevertheless she sank, and stiffening, disappeared. Back home we found that in the night her frame, drawing close to dissolution, had endured the shame of diarrhea and had dragged across the floor to a newspaper carelessly left there. Good dog. All right, before we get into what I'd like for you to go back and look for, I want to point out a few things. This poem is about a puppy that had an internal injury. And a lot of times when an animal has such an injury, their body will shut down. And from the outside looking in, everything is okay, but on the inside, everything is not okay. And that's kind of what happened here. And so this new puppy was learning and kind of getting used to its life with its new family. It was learning to go to the bathroom where it was supposed to go to the bathroom, which was on newspapers. And when the puppy would go on the newspapers the way that they were supposed to, the family would tell it what a good dog it was. And it loved that praise that it got from its people. And so it was learning very quickly to do that more and more. And then in the last stanza, sometimes when we read this, kids get silly and they see the word diarrhea and they start cracking up. But most of the time when we read this poem in class, kids understand that this is very serious and it's very sad. And what actually happened in this last stanza is that even as her body was shutting down, she still was craving that praise and wanting to do what her owner had wanted her to do or had taught her to do. So even in her death, even though her body was shutting down and her frame was weak, she was able to drag herself over to a piece of newspaper that had been left on the floor, and that's where it had gone to the bathroom in the middle of the night. So even in death, this puppy wanted to please its owners. So I want to point out also that this poem started with the injury and then made the poem about the poet's and his wife's reactions. Like they didn't know what was actually going on. So this first line, we know exactly what happened to the dog, but then he goes on to explain in the following paragraphs that he and his wife had no idea that that had happened. And so it was their reactions to the dog's behavior and like kind of what they were thinking and what they were feeling. So they definitely started inside the experience. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about were a few words that you might not be aware of. So this word right here, malaise, that actually means a physical weakness or a discomfort. So she just wasn't feeling very good. They could tell that. And so they thought that that's why she was acting that way. It's just because she had a shot. And I don't think you guys probably remember getting shots at babies as babies, but if you've had any shots recently, you know that after you get those shots, you sometimes feel achy and not so good for a while. And new puppies have to get lots of shots just like new babies do. And so they thought that was what was causing the puppy to act a little bit tired or unwell, or shy. The other word that I thought I probably needed to explain for you was this word, imperious. This word means urgent. So his wife called in a voice that was urgent with tears. Um, and then this word down here, disillusion. This is a synonym for the word death. So it means death. Disillusion means death. Sorry, I thought I had that highlighted. Okay. I also wanted you to understand that there was some subtle rhyming going on. There wasn't a tight rhyme scheme, and there wasn't a pattern that followed, that was followed throughout the poem, but there definitely was some rhyming, some subtle rhyming. So like with the word liver and forever, it's not a tight rhyme. It's pretty loose, but it's still there, and it creates that musical quality of the poem. And then we had fur and her down here. And then also fed and bed in the stanza above that. Okay. I wanted to draw your attention, last thing I wanted to draw your attention to was these last lines. We talk about concluding strongly. This was definitely a strong conclusion. This good dog, these last lines, this is an example of irony because this dog never lived to hear that praise. Good dog. It's also why it's in italics, because they didn't realize that she was trying to be a good dog even in her death until after she had passed. And so it's really sad because she was such a good dog and she just wanted to please her owners, but she had sustained an injury that her body couldn't remedy. And so these final lines are an example of irony, which means that it's kind of like, okay, a twist ending, so to speak. So even though she was dying, the good dog found a piece of newspaper to go to the bathroom on, even though she never lived to hear the praise that she was seeking with those actions. So I hope this poem hasn't been too difficult for you to read. It always breaks my heart to read sad poems, especially about about pets, because we love them so very much. But it's important to know that good poetry has the power to make us feel those things, and that was all on account of the words and the feeling that the poet brought to life for us. So today, when you go back into your poem, I would like for you to make 3 comments on the lines and language that touched your heart. And when you're leaving these comments, don't just say, "This touched my heart." Don't just make up something. Tell me specifically, what was it about those lines that touched your heart? How did the poet do that? Was it because you could relate to it? Why did these lines strike you? That's what I'm looking for. So you're going to make 3 comments, 3, and you're going to tell me which of these lines and language struck you or touched your heart, and then you're going to explain those comments in there. So I guess what I'm looking for here is for you to be more specific. Some of your comments are getting kind of vague, we're becoming kind of cliche. Oh man, this struck me so deep. Like I'm seeing a lot of that. Well, explain to me how it struck you so deep. Why did it strike you deep? How did it touch your heart? That's what I'm looking for, and I'm looking for three. Um, Also, because we're in the middle of writing poems, our own poems, if you come across, if you come from a pet owning family, it's likely you have your own story to tell about the end of the life of a beloved cat or dog. A poem is the perfect genre to tell that story. So, this is something that you can do in your writing too. And if you accidentally left it off of your heart map, that's no reason not to write about it. So if you feel inspired or led to do that, by all means, go ahead and do that. You guys, I love you and I miss you so much. Please don't hesitate to reach out and let me know if you need my help in any way. I will see you soon. Bye.